Let me talk to you. It's not even plugged in. We, or WWE as it's known to its fans, is something that I've had a very limited exposure to. Way back when I was a child and I would walk to school, there was a brief stop at a friend's house. Often whilst there, the WWF, as it was called at the time, would be on TV, and my friend and his brothers would be practicing the Walls of Jericho or some such on each other. However, my family never had the additional TV packages, and I couldn't even tell you if wrestling was on the 4 terrestrial channels because we only had the one TV in the house, which was exclusively on whatever my parents wanted to watch. Years of changing rooms and Gardener's World mean I hate both decorating and gardening, and wrestling never had the opportunity to sink its claws into me. Plus, I'm not really a fighter. My sleep deprivation monster is more Big Lebowski than Tyler Durden.
Yeah, well, that's just like, your opinion, man.
So, life continued, my only exposure to wrestling being the South Park episode and the Louis Theroux documentary, neither of which did wrestling any favours in my mind, the former showing it to be kind of ridiculous.
Juggernaut, there's to be an Ultimate Smackdown this Saturday. Are you going to run from that as well? I'll fight anytime, anywhere.
He don't run from fights, just from responsibilities.
And the latter showing it to have some quite nasty people in it.
I'm gonna throw up. Come on, do it. I don't care. Like that. I got a bucket right here. You set your ass in that bucket. Turn around, face the wall. Get to the wall. You look at that wall. Don't bring your head on it, okay?
However, since starting Twitch streaming, twitch.tv/casuallygeeking, it's free to follow, just saying, reference to it has come up a few times in chat, and my Fromsoft video had a theme of going from not liking something to becoming a fan. So, I thought I could try the same with wrestling. For the last few months, starting shortly before something called Fastlane, I have been watching most, but not all, of WWE's output. Something I learned pretty quickly is that WWE is not the only televised wrestling. I tried watching a little bit of something called AEW as well, but for something that is essentially scripted, it was unnecessarily bloody and just not as fun to watch. It does make me wonder if the people who enjoy AEW are sort of more hardcore fans of wrestling, but either way, it's a note from me. Which brings me to another elephant in the room. I understand that wrestlers and its fans can get a bit touchy about referring to the scripted nature of it.
I think this is fake.
You think it's fake?
What's that? Is that fake?
You'll have to forgive me, I am going to refer to its nature and to things like writing. Also, if you're a fan of WWE, you're probably not going to enjoy some of the conclusions that I come to. Despite my opinions, and despite its scripted nature, the chant of holy shit definitely applies to the incredible athletics. The ability to almost always safely perform very dangerous stunts is genuinely impressive, even if the dangerous stunts are sometimes just hilariously bonkers.
Gillis! Oh my God! Io Sky from the top of the cage!
Also, I'm aware that WWE is a constant and fast-moving target, and given that YouTube is a hobby, not a job, it takes me a while to put together a video. So some of the things I am talking about may already have changed since I wrote this. Now, to tearing it apart bit by bit, I think for this little blog essay thingamajig, the best format is probably comments and questions, as I have a bunch of both. What is the difference between SmackDown and Raw? I understand the idea of NXT, they've made it clear it's about introducing new talent, but a number of people seem to flit around between SmackDown and Raw on a whim that, in my mind, I struggled to separate who's in which bit. They've now done this performative thing with the two company directors fining and kicking people out from the show they don't belong on, and they have this supposed rivalry between them that gives off Mark Zuckerberg versus Elon Musk vibes, meaning it's pointless and I don't care. Plus, the big events don't appear to have any brand loyalty. Is the whole thing a cynical cash grab to be able to be on multiple networks? Or is it a way to have more belts, factions, dominant people? I don't know. Logistically, maybe it helps with travel, maybe it helps with wrestlers taking time off, but is there actual brand loyalty amongst the fans of the show? I get that within the confines of a live event it's probably difficult to think of creative ways for the bad guys to be bad, but do they have to rely so heavily on the bad guys winning by having someone distract the ref whilst other members of their team cheat? It's really perplexing to me the number of times the ref turns around to see a seemingly suddenly unconscious good guy being pinned and is like, "Oh, what happened? Weird. Oh well, 1, 2, 3. These are long shows, and I find myself skipping forward on some matches that involve Judgment Day or Damage Control, where the ending is obvious before the match has even begun. Who the heck is this guy? One of the good things about the likes of Seth Rollins or Gunther is they turn up. They put the title on the line. Granted, I'm starting to gather that titles rarely change outside of big paid events, but for the format of the show, they're present. For a fair chunk of the time I've been watching, this guy, whose name is apparently Paul Heyman, would appear randomly and say, "Call Roman Reigns," into his phone. And I'd be sat there thinking, who? Turns out, Aquaman's doppelganger has a belt, and when he decides to turn up, he's apparently so important that his catchphrase is simply, "Acknowledge me!" So, like, why isn't he there more? Is he injured? Is he ill? Is he on holiday? Is he on garden leave before going somewhere else? I don't get it. Give the belt to LA Knight, yeah? The way stories conclude is extremely odd to me. One of the first stories I encountered was Shinsuke Nakamura terrorizing Seth Rollins. He would appear on screen and in ring as a cartoonish Yakuza-like villain, making Seth's life a misery when all Seth wanted to do was dance and listen to people sing his song. As an aside, speaking of songs, Shinsuke's song is all wrong for his character. It's good guy music, but I gather from commentary he's only recently turned bad. Anyway, Shinsuke would talk about Seth's injured back and how he wants to finish Seth once and for all and break him, so they finally have their title match, and I'm not gonna lie, it was entertaining after all that build-up. It's the first storyline I saw reach a crescendo, and when the match finished with Seth defeating the evil Shinsuke to keep his title, part of me is thinking, damn, gonna be interesting to see how they deal with this loss. Because unlike movies, credits didn't roll on a villain who will no longer be a part of the series, but then nothing? Done. Finished. Seth's back is fine, and he's moved on to his next rival. Shinsuke is fighting what seems like joke matches for a while, before moving on and doing the same anime villain shtick with Cody Rhodes. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure it's hard for such a long-running thing, where villains can't technically disappear after the story is over, and if Seth's back was as bad as Shinsuke was making out, he shouldn't be in the ring at all. But it seems to be what happens regularly. Since I've been watching, other stories have had their big conclusion, and then moved on so fast it's given me whiplash. So, now I have no faith that the writing team have an ability to conclude a storyline in a way that isn't just, big match is done, everyone reset to starting positions. I do wonder if that kind of stuff creates a dissonance with fans when stories just hard out and good guys can become bad guys or bad guys become good guys overnight. How do fans take it seriously? How come when a wrestler absolutely hates another wrestler, when they hate them with such a passion that they go on and on about how they want to beat the ever-loving poop out of them, and they get given an opportunity, a match against the wrestler they loathe, and that match is sometimes in a cage, so it's not easy for the object of their spite to escape. They try and win the match instead of delivering on the beatdown they so desperately want. As I said with AEW, I'm not keen on the idea of unnecessary blood, so I'm not looking for that. But if they hate them that much, surely they're not going to be fussed about winning. Surely they're not going to care if they get disqualified. they could at least make it look like they're delivering on the promise of their vitriol. There have been 2 matches since I've been watching, both in a cage, and in both, within a short time, the people who were so looking forward to delivering a beatdown tried to win the match or just moved on to someone else. Extending on my last comment, some of the stuff they're doing is conceptually actually pretty good story. I agree with the big Scottish fella. Well, I did before it developed into a catchphrase about how the truth will set you free.
Drew McIntyre is a bad dude with issues.
And the truth will set you free. Truth.
But when he was just super pissed off at everyone for accepting a previous villain with open arms, that was good. That was believable. LA Knight, he's good on a mic and great in matches. And I think whatever they're building with him and Randy Orton could be pretty fun. I also like that they have more antagonistic anti-hero type good guys, rather than more traditional heroes like American Nightmare. And I like that when someone seems good at improvising, rather than running lines, they're given that runway. They seem to be given the room to improvise.
I look in this ring and I see Ricochet, I see Nakamura, and I see 2 guys who are as useless as basketball cleats. Then I look and I see a guy, he makes videos for 14-year-old girls and wants to call himself a megastar. No!
I'm gonna level with you, I started writing this script shortly after Survivor because I felt done with the entire concept of WWE. I was bored of the repetition, disappointed that Drew and Jay didn't really amount to much, frustrated by the seeming lack of desire to actually make big moves with titles and stories, instead just maintaining the status quo. But the following week, the 2 random guys who popped into Survivor rekindled that interest a bit. The aforementioned Randy Orton did his move on the director guy he just signed a contract with, and he reacted like this. That is genuinely very funny. Then they called back to it the next week with another funny joke. His song's a little on the nose with the whole hearing voices in his head, but I'm assuming he's an agent of chaos, and I actually really look forward to that. And this CM Punk guy is great on the mic. So great, in fact, that it breached just watching the show for me. It made me look up a YouTube video to understand what happened 10 years ago. And I've got to say, I can see why loyal fans who have stuck with it for that period would be ecstatic by his return. And they've done well to capitalize on that by evoking the memory of that period.
The competition here, week in and week out, competes to be the best in the world, but the best in the world has not been here for almost 10 years.
Why are they so afraid to change title holders? I'm honestly not sure I've seen a title other than the tag team title change hands in the time I've been watching up to writing this. And there's like 20 of them. It seems like they're trying to beat all their longest title holder records at the same time, so everything is stagnant. But for me, as a new person tuning in, that is dull. Very, very dull. It's like watching Schumacher win the Grand Prix every week without fail. And Formula One isn't scripted. WWE can try to make things interesting and exciting, but they don't seem to want to. They cut away a lot, more than anything I've ever watched before. Is this an American sports thing? Because when I've had cause to watch football, soccer, they don't cut away apart from before the match, halftime, and after the match. Whereas WWE is 2 minutes of wrestling, ad break. 2 minutes of wrestling, visa sponsor. 2 minutes of wrestling, American football sponsor. Then the match is over and they immediately cut to something backstage. Is this cynical cash grab territory? Thanks science for the ability to skip forward. Otherwise, there's no way I could cope. I decided to look it up, and apparently they sometimes just kind of awkwardly stand or hold each other during commercial breaks. I think it would be better for everyone involved, the audience, both at home and live, if the flow wasn't completely destroyed just to make a quick buck. Why do they lie so much? They call belts that are very much being disputed undisputed, or they say it's the longest running TV show, which you can Google and see it's not. One guy commented about the annoying kid that everybody boos loudly at and how they thought it was being played through speakers, so I looked it up. That is a thing they do. They play audience reactions through speakers. And when looking it up, I also found that they lie about the number of people who are watching. I get that the matches are scripted. I get that elements like injuries are sometimes faked because it's more compelling than just saying, oh yeah, they needed 2 weeks holiday. But do they need to lie about everything? This last comment is also my conclusion. I don't know if I will continue to watch it. As I mentioned earlier, I was on my way out until things seemed to change up a bit, but I'm still watching it for now. Just less focused. NXT is out, and I'm skipping more. It's a big time investment for the most part. The writing isn't strong enough to keep me engaged for that time. Without the idea of wanting to make a video about it, I imagine eventually I'll just fall off entirely. But that doesn't mean it's all bad. I just don't think it's aimed at me. I have a hunch from its PG nature and how childish it is sometimes that it's aimed at younger people. I would imagine anyone close to my age watching it are legacy fans who watched it when they were younger and who are in for the long haul. I think maybe it has the same issue as Star Wars for me, where I was too old when I finally got round to watching it, which meant I didn't have the goggles to be able to ignore all the issues. It's not all negative though. I think they nail crowd engagement. They know how to rile up a crowd to hate the baddies. A few wrestlers have songs that seem purpose-built for crowd engagement. And quite a few of the in-ring promos where the wrestlers have charisma, decent acting abilities, and an ability to improvise have genuinely been very funny. Plus, the main point, the wrestling itself, is undeniably impressive. I would not be surprised if every one of them has some life-altering ache or pain, just for the sake of people's entertainment. And the fact that they can keep doing these events every week, moving around the US, is logistically immensely impressive. Though that could be the root cause of some of my issues. If they spread it out, did less shows, less pay-per-views, maybe the quality could be more polished overall. Production value-wise, there are a couple of points in the show where it seems, I don't want to say amateurish, but that is the word that is coming to mind. They get away with it, I think, because fans are attached to the wrestlers themselves and the stunts that they manage to pull off, which means the stories and the backstage antics can be kind of lackluster or have obvious errors or weird, awkward pauses before starting, or just be an excuse for a guy to do a dance whilst everyone stands around him saying,
"Oh, that's nasty."
Meanwhile, I'm cringing and thinking, why is no one questioning that there's a film crew to see this? My suspension of disbelief is attuned to movies which are tighter, and necessarily they don't pretend to be organic when an entire film crew is there to film something. So in any type of TV, commercial, YouTube, or whatever, this kind of something happening and there just happens to be a crew there to film it thing gets under my skin. And my time studying movies has also given me a good bit of knowledge about narrative writing structure, which is another thing that has bugged me about WWE. Frequently, when a show or segment has ended, I would find myself thinking, if I was doing this, that's not how I would have done it. I would have written this differently. And often it feels like they don't quite know where they're going with their material before they start doing their material. So 3 weeks ago, they didn't have any idea where it would be now. And they'll set things up that just fizzle out with no payoff, or worse, a wrestler who was in a story will just disappear off the face of the earth. Because the turnaround of talent just seems to be utterly insane. Part of me wonders how much say the talent actually get in their stories. In a lot of ways, I feel like WWE is successful in spite of its showrunners or writers, rather than because of them. LA Knight is a good example of this. It would seem he is beloved by the fans. I see why. His matches are fun to watch, he's clearly very talented with a microphone, and to me it looks like he can naturally, comfortably improvise. He's funny, and knows how to work a crowd. Even in the comfort of my own home, I have done a few LA Knight yes when prompted, and that was graft on his part. I looked this up, and WWE has this thing where they push talent that they want to be the top talent, i.e. they'll give them the most screen time and the best matches and spots on pay-per-views, and other wrestlers will sell them as good wrestlers by losing to them. And apparently WWE has a habit of backing the wrong horse. Then when the right horse actually starts getting fandom, trying to sideline them out of stubbornness. It also seems like it often backfires on the creatives, because fans want what the fans want. And famously, this has led to things in the past, apparently like a yes movement, where the fans weren't happy with the choice that the writers were making. So, despite being clearly one of the most talented all-round entertainers in the building, based on random YouTubers I've watched, LA Knight had a massive uphill battle against the direction of the creatives to get to where he is now. To me, that speaks pretty negatively of the people running the company. Whether it's stubbornness, laziness, or just belligerence against the will of fans, I can't say, but it makes me wonder just how much more successful WWE could be. Especially as I gather from sources that I've been seeing whilst doing my research, that viewer numbers are not as good as they once were. Perhaps when I was back at my friend's house watching them do Wars of Jericho. So, that's it. Those are my thoughts on Wii. If you are a long-time wrestling fan, I apologize, and you are free to tell me how wrong I am in the comments, because it's the best thing around. As I've never really watched anime, I thought I might set my sights on that next. If anyone has any particular recommendations, please do let me know in the comments. As always, I appreciate all of the likey, subscribey nonsense. It's free and it really helps. Thanks for watching.